What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Weightlifting Way of Life podcast. It's your host, Ryan Capers, back with Bailey Forst and Dr. CJ DePalma. Today, we're going to bring you a pretty cool show talking about CrossFit and weightlifting, those worlds colliding, and some of the backgrounds and what goes with those. So, CJ, if you could, please start us out talking about the history of CrossFit, the very lengthy, long, historic history.
Life, yeah. So, CrossFit was, I think they say it was technically originally founded in like 1999 with Greg Glassman. That's when he started. He was doing it for a long time, but
now I thought it was 74.
Yeah,
when he did Fran in his garage for the first time and went and grabbed his buddy.
Yeah. I mean, when it started, when he started training other people teaching other people what it was. And then we had, a 5 to 7 year span of training some coaches and getting a little bit of, traction, starting to move across the United States. And then in 2007, there was the first CrossFit Open, or technically it was the first CrossFit Games. There wasn't an Open yet. And they met out in Aromas, California at Dave Castro's parents' ranch house. And from there, it's just been a drastic and phenomenal exponential growth from a couple thousand people doing it to, well over millions around the world now.
And what do you think are the biggest contributors to that growth?
Well, we always have fads and, it's cool thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing CrossFit for 5 years now, and everyone who doesn't do CrossFit continues to tell me that it's still a fad and it's gonna fade out, and it might
one of these days.
But I think the biggest thing with CrossFit that made it different was that it gave people the opportunity to be competitive in their life when their heydays were over.
Yeah, I agree with that, and personally, being a gym owner, I think in my opinion, a bigger contributor than that is that it created this low barrier of entry for anybody that wants to open a gym. It brought the idea of a micro gym to the forefront of the gym market. And now anybody can go open a gym for $50,000.
Right.
Whereas if you want to go open a Globo gym.
What's a Globo gym?
If you want to open a club gym with your machines and your treadmills and your whatnot, it's going to cost you close to $1 million if you want to do it the right way.
Right. So I think that's a great point. I think the other one is when you go to a Globo gym, or another thing is, you go by yourself, you might go with a group of people or something. But what CrossFit has done with the class style setting and the support for all level athletes is the community that it builds. And I think that's really, really important to understand that there's nothing else that does that.
But CJ, my aunt Sally has been doing a boot camp for the last 40 years up the street, and it's in a warehouse. What's the difference?
Well, if you're comparing a boot camp, CrossFit's a brand. Boot camp's not a brand. So are there more people doing boot camps in the country than CrossFit? Probably.
You think so?
Probably. There's like 10 boot camps in Pensacola.
That's fair, but I'm trying to ask the same question.
Yeah, well, you're comparing. So you're trying to say like boot camp is just like a sort of a style of fitness, right? CrossFit's not really much different than a boot camp, just heavier weights and some gymnastics.
Right. Plus barbell. Boot camp plus barbell.
Right. Boot camp plus barbell and gymnastics.
Yeah.
So what CrossFit has done is they monopolized a brand and they created a competition for it, an ability to compete, which nothing else does. Right, there's only similar things like styles of fitness that are popular. You have like kickboxing or boxing or like these Zumba or things like that. Like are they good styles of fitness? Yeah, sure, but they didn't create a desire to get better at it,
right? To
compete, right? And that's fitness, where the difference is, right? And then you might get good communities there, which is great. I'm not discrediting any other style of fitness, but besides, like if you have someone who goes to the Globo gym, right, machines, etc., what's the only thing they can do to truly get better? And they can compete at bodybuilding. the hardest thing on the planet to mentally accept is to stare at yourself 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And
seek mental illness. Just kidding.
No, yeah.
Kidding,
we're
not
saying
kidding.
that. So that's very hard, right? And only the best of the best can do it. Your 1% of 1% of 1% can even consider doing that as a sport, right? So with CrossFit, that's not the same, right? You can have your soccer mom and Rich Froning competing in the same competition, next to each other, right? Doing a scaled version, right? They created an ability to have fitness and created an ability to modify activities and modify workouts that super high-level athletes and very low-level athletes can work out next to each other. And they've done it in a manner to where everyone supports everyone, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think the support system is the biggest thing. Because, you go to a gym, I think about competing with this person, I want to lift more than him. Whereas you come into a CrossFit gym, they don't care about that. Right. No one cares about what you're lifting, just cares about you're doing the same work, doing the same workout, trying to get done just like everybody else.
Right. Yeah, and that's the biggest selling point, obviously, for CrossFit / functional fitness, whatever, is that it is that group think, that group mentality, and you can probably back me up on this, is that the people that do gravitate toward CrossFit are the people that are former athletes, former military, right? People that have trained in that heavy group setting and love that team feel of working together in something. Yeah,
I think so. So on that note, that's, I guess, the sort of history of CrossFit. So I guess we'll continue real quick. So CrossFit has grown to include millions of people around the world.
Over 22,000 affiliates right now, right?
Right.
And then probably equally as many mockers, such as myself.
Right. Yeah. And then you have there's some actual other brands.
Yeah. A lot of these new brands, you can definitely, look at CrossFit as probably the model that came off as things like Orange Theory, a lot of these boot camp models like Fit Body, these ideas that it's a lot of the same elements that you see and a lot of the same ideas.
Yeah. There's a new one down in Orlando. I can't think of the name of it. It's down in Central Florida, South Florida. I think it's everywhere. I can't think of the name. It's Get Bigger, Faster, something. I don't know. But they compete in CrossFit competitions.
Nice.
They go and they're this
nice.
Other brand. You go in a gym and you wouldn't know that it's a different, that it's not
well,
CrossFit.
it's like what Jason Khalipa is doing with NC Fit. It's
right.
They're taking the CrossFit model and they're just making their own brand.
Right. Yeah.
And if you can create systems and make it good, then you can make it a marketable gym. Whereas CrossFit is not a marketable gym.
Right.
Yeah.
So harsh words.
Well, no, I'm saying it's not a gym model.
Yeah.
It's a name that you buy.
Name. Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And they allow you to do whatever you want.
Exactly.
It's one of the best affiliate models on the planet.
Yeah.
But,
it's the cheapest for them, by the way.
As a franchise, I've been
what you meant to say was genius. It's the most genius affiliate model for anyone to create ever.
Right. Yeah, because it's very little requirement from a headquarters standpoint. They don't monitor what you do. They just
until you leave.
Right. So, but it's great, and my outside looking in, I've owned a gym partially, but truly seeing a gym work for long periods of time and talking to owners. My favorite's when owners say that they can't believe it costs so much to have an affiliate or a franchise. And I'm like, really? Try and own a Chick-fil-A.
Right.
It's $1 million
I mentioned Fit Body. If you want to own a Fit Body boot camp, and this is no equipment, this is nothing. This is just, you get to use the name, and they basically help you get it started and help you run it, kind of teach you their processes, $20,000.
Oh, yeah.
That's way worse than CrossFit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're getting a lot of help, which is really nice and probably worth the money. But it holds nowhere near as much weight as what CrossFit holds.
For sure. So now we have the Worldwide Open, CrossFit Regionals, and CrossFit Games, which is our season, right? Almost 300,000 people are signed up this year.
Wow.
It's been steady for a few years now. There's some fluctuating up and downs, and then that's pretty much what it is, right? The sport has evolved immensely, and the local weekend competitions, I think, is really what sets CrossFit apart from anything else, right?
Yeah.
Having a local competition where soccer moms can compete, so where high level athletes can compete in the same day.
And
right?
you take these different pockets of the community and you pull them
Yeah,
together.
it's really good.
Which is really awesome.
Yeah, and it's been great to be a part of it for the last 5 years. And the different aspects that CrossFit offers, from weightlifting to gymnastics, everything like that. So, speaking of that, let's hear a little history on weightlifting.
So weightlifting, as most people know, if we're going to talk about the sport of Olympic weightlifting, obviously it started in the earliest form of what we understand as the Olympics, a form of picking things up. Who could lift the heaviest one was an original idea. But the idea of modern Olympic weightlifting actually started around the 1920s. So very old sport, very antique sport, and there's even ideas of picking things up and being the heaviest to win. Started, in the mid 1800s. But what we would call Olympic weightlifting, or a form of it, started in the 1920s. They called it Olympic weightlifting at the time. It involved 5 lifts. Some were done with a dumbbell that were single arms. Some were done with a barbell that were 2 arms. There was some early renditions of the snatch and the clean and jerk at that time, as long as a clean and a press, as long as a single arm snatch, and I believe a single arm clean and a press, something to that degree. And then that kind of hung around for a long time as a sort of a novelty sport. We saw it in the Olympics, and that was about the most fame that it got. And then around, it was 1972 was the last time that there was a reform on the actual lifts, and that's whenever it actually came down to just the snatch and the clean and jerk. At this time, a lot of people don't know this, you still weren't able to touch the bar to your body on the way up until your shoulders were red. I want to say that was 76. It wasn't long after.
Oh, okay.
And believe it or not, there are still coaches out there that think that should be a rule, which is insane. In 1987,
I bet
women,
the coaches are like 85, right?
Right. Yeah. You'd be surprised. In 87, women were finally introduced to the world of Olympic weightlifting. They were allowed to compete, and then actually, and this is absolutely insane, in the year 2000 was the first time women were allowed to compete in Olympic weightlifting at the Olympics.
Really?
Yes, 2000, yeah.
Knowledge.
And before Sarah Robles won bronze, that was the last time we won a medal in the Olympics for the women.
Wow.
In 2000.
Congrats, Sarah, by the way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So weightlifting, up until about the year 2015, weightlifting has always been this super underground, kind of dark world sport that has never really received a lot of fame and acclaim. 99 out of 100 people in the street wouldn't know what a snatch is, and if they knew what a clean was, it was...
Huh? They still don't. Maybe 98 now.
Yeah, right.
98 out of 100.
and then you probably have about 20% would know what a clean is, and they're talking about starfish cleans that they did with their football team in high school. Right. So now with CrossFit, I mean, I think any weightlifting coach that doesn't give a huge amount of credit to CrossFit for where weightlifting has gotten to is crazy. Because in the year 2014, the actual USAW, who's the governing body in weightlifting for America, the USAW literally doubled their signups, their registered members in the year 2014, which has never happened.
From what year?
From 13 to 14.
From the year prior.
No. From total signups.
Right.
Doubled in 1 year.
Well, you have to renew your membership every year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
That's
yeah.
crazy. So
it's unreal.
In 1 year, it was 100% growth.
Yeah. I thought you were saying something else. Yeah. But no, it's totally crazy. And if we go back and we look, 2012, 13, 14, that's a time, to me anyway, CrossFit was really gaining a lot of traction and momentum. And, it's not hard to see the correlation.
Yeah.
So from that, we've seen a huge explosion in weightlifting. We've seen a huge explosion in the popularity of weightlifting. It's really unreal to see the amount of people that are flocking to the sport. I get to talk to people probably once a week that want to do weightlifting, that have never done it. Obviously, it takes a very special person. Not everybody can jump into it. But it's really cool to see the interest overall. CrossFit is something that it's a fitness program as well as a sport, and so anybody can step into it as a fitness program. You can't really weightlift for fitness. It just doesn't really fit. If you're going to do that, you might as well do CrossFit, right? if you're going to do weightlifting, you probably have some kind of competitive element to what you're doing. Right. So, that's weightlifting, and it's just it's just a great time to be a part of the sport. Yeah. It really is.
Cool. Yeah. So you mentioned something interesting of doing weightlifting for sport instead of weightlifting for fitness compared to CrossFit for fitness or CrossFit for sport. Why is there a difference?
So to me, as a gym owner, anytime I'm talking to somebody new that wants to do CrossFit or functional fitness, as we call it, and they say, "Oh, I saw the CrossFit games on TV," or I saw the CrossFit regionals popped up on my Facebook feed. I always make it a point to say, you need to understand that CrossFit, the sport, and CrossFit, the fitness program, are two completely different things that share similar modalities. But the intensity that they're executed at and the frequency are two completely different models.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. And that's how we keep people from destroying themselves.
Right. Are you sure?
I don't know.
We try and keep people from destroying
Right. Try. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because everyone does CrossFit, and then as soon as they get a muscle up, they're like, I'm rich running. It's fine. I got this. Or I guess no. Now I'm Matt Frazier. Right. Okay. So that's a very good point. Fitness and sport are two different things. I believe that when anything goes from fitness to sport, it goes from healthy and appropriate to no longer truly healthy for the long term.
Absolutely.
I don't think any sport done at that intensity level or in a sport intensity or sport consistency, frequency, load, whatever, is truly healthy for like the long-term longevity concept. I think it's always better than being sedentary, but then we start getting into,
if you look at optimal ways to train.
Right, exactly.
Course,
comparing to, a fitness regimen versus sport regimen, it's definitely different. Yeah.
I've probably had the conversation with every weightlifter I've ever worked with, the idea of how low to sit into a squat and knee position and all that stuff. And, everybody has kind of that ideal model in their head. And my answer always is, whenever the question starts coming, should my knees be in if I sit that low, blah, 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 is if you want to be competitive, you do what you can to get in the best positions you can that are going to help you lift the most weight.
I was saying you get in the best position to help you lift the most weight.
Right.
Because the best position is relative.
Right, exactly. And so what I'm saying is the position we'll put them in where they need to be doesn't feel healthy.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's an efficient position and they work well in that position, that's the position we're going to be in.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether it, makes your knees not feel great for the next couple of days or whatever, you'll get over it.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Beat the body to submission.
Yeah, you got to beat the body into submission. That's step one.
So Bailey, you're a great example of why weightlifting should love CrossFit, because you started CrossFit first and transitioned the other way. You want to tell us about that?
Well, just did CrossFit just for straight fitness, and obviously I saw we did it for fitness just as our football program in high school, and then
very progressive football program.
Yeah, right. Well, one of our coaches did CrossFit. He was a coach at a CrossFit gym, and he convinced our strength and conditioning coach had left. Convinced our new strength and conditioning coach that would be a part of it. So we did our weight room.
Strength and conditioning coaches. How progressive.
It's Texas football. They got everything there.
Yeah, it's everything.
Well, convinced them that would be our cardio aspect. So we did that. We always did that. It was always a 20-minute AMRAP. Okay, so we only used 20 minutes.
Well, it's football. Do you need broad times and modal domains? No. Just 20 minutes. That's it. Average.
I mean, it's better, and it's better than running wind sprints.
It is, or stadiums, or
we did those too.
Yeah. I don't mind stadiums.
No,
but wind sprints to build speed.
Right.
Another day, another topic.
Yeah. When I was in college, one of our conditioning tests was whenever we came back from spring break or something. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was winter break. We had 36 110s.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this doesn't feel like football.
Yeah.
This feels like cross country.
Was that the South?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be 20, and then the swing got mad.
No, I remember. I was running with you guys. I was there. It was 20, and he said in the beginning, we will do one extra for every time someone doesn't make it.
Yeah, that was exactly it.
And you finished 20, and everyone was dying. This was great. I mean, everyone was dying. Because every position had a different time they had to reach. Skill, big skill, etc. And a lot of people didn't make it. And he was like, all right, well, I counted 16. And we ran 2100s, and without knowing, literally did it all again.
Yeah, that was the best part, is that he didn't tell He didn't tell anybody when they didn't make it.
Yeah.
He just counted it.
Yeah, he just counted in his head. He's like,
Yeah,
well, we made
silent
4.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember that was when I was like, before CrossFit, I ran a lot of cross country. I ran a lot of distance. So I was excited. I was like, oh, we're going to get some today. And man, it was bad. Oh, it was bad.
Well, back to what I was saying. Well, when I graduated high school, I just started looking into CrossFit. It was really interesting to me. Found the CrossFit Games. I watched probably every CrossFit video they had on their YouTube channel. Super into it. Did as much as I could. Just working out, doing that type of stuff.
Even went and watched the CrossFit Games.
Yes. When I graduated high school, I went in 2015.
Oh, that's cool.
Went to the CrossFit Games with my brother, and that actually got my brother huge into CrossFit. Like he lost a ton of weight after that, but just progressed from there. Really enjoyed CrossFit, and then eventually I would study in how to actually train to go to the games, because that's what I want to do. I was like, these people are awesome. This is what I want to do. I started researching how to figure out what would be best way, what do I need, and just found out you need to have a good general strength foundation. You need to have really strong lifts, and just needed to do that. Came into this gym because I knew I needed to get good at Olympic lifting, and told Ryan that's what I wanted to do, get good at that, because he actually thought I was a CrossFitter when I first came in. It was the week of 17.1.
You look like a CrossFitter.
Oh, I was small. Real small, maybe 140 pounds.
Wow.
But yeah,
you were 140 pounds?
Probably then, yeah.
Wow. You're 165 now?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Man, going off last week, just quit your job, gain 25 pounds and 100 pounds on my
and
weight.
then clean and jerk double body weight.
God, cheese and rice. How about that? Holy smokes, I'm quitting everything now. I went to school for no reason.
But yeah, I just came here and then they just made me just love lifting heavy weights. It's kind of weird how that works.
So why'd you stop doing CrossFit?
Well, I just wanted to get better.
Did Ryan make you?
No.
There might have been some persuasion. This guy moves the barbell decent. He needs to not waste his time anymore.
Sure.
Just focus on moving that barbell.
Yeah, I was told it's actually Brandon that always said that CrossFit ruins weightlifting.
Maybe. Well, and this is a whole nother conversation. If you're a man, it's hard to run in one direction versus women who handle volume a lot better.
Right.
So women, I feel like, have a lot easier time doing both. Also, like we just talked about, Olympic weightlifting for women is brand new.
Right.
So that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I think it could be another topic for another day, but the ability to produce 1RM style lifts is much different for a male and female.
Yes.
Which
it's a lot more taxing for a man.
For a male, because we're naturally more fast twitch based, right? Mm-hmm. So their ability to handle, a woman's ability to handle volume is easier solely because they can't produce as much as like a one shot lift as well as a male can. And this is a general statement, so there's no,
no hate.
Yeah, no
Are
hate.
you a
it's
bigot?
just
You're
right.
bigots?
No, definitely
well, no,
not.
but women recover quicker. Right. I mean, it's obviously not from day to day, but between lifts they recover quicker. There definitely is some biology behind that.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's why I believe that women can do both. And for a man, in my opinion, if Bailey had been doing CrossFit this whole time, he wouldn't be at the level weightlifting is. I feel like that's not really much of an argument.
Right.
Probably not.
Because obviously if you focus on one thing and not two things, you're going to get good at one thing. And
right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So competition in CrossFit, you touched on it a little bit. How do we take the average CrossFitter that's just starting out and kind of work them into the world of competitive CrossFit?
Don't we all want to know that answer?
Yeah. That's why I'm asking. I'm trying to go to games.
Right. Me too, bro. It's, man, I don't know. I don't have like an exact answer for that. Because you look at, like, there's some games athlete that walked in like over 300 pounds to gyms, like Travis Williams. Travis Williams was humongous.
Yeah. Or China Cho.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or Emily Bridgers.
Yeah. Or Annie, or like all of them. They all walked in and Emily's a crazy example. Like, but she was a high level gymnast, so she had some of it there. But like,
China, did China do anything?
I don't think she would.
So. And she, like, if you look at her before picture, she didn't look like she had an athletic bone in her body.
Yeah. So, it's really tough. I think I don't have an exact answer for that. I think some people are obviously predisposed to be better at CrossFit.
Well, that's sports in general.
Yeah. But I think you take it like you do any strength and periodized program. You do the basics, you get good at the basics, and then you go from there and you see where your body's going to allow you to go.
Yeah.
And then
and I think certain people have different personality traits that kind of lend
Yes.
them to, like, I can tell you personally, when I started this gym 3.5 years ago, I didn't want anything to do with competitions.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want anybody to train for competitions. I could give a crap about a competition. I wanted everybody to just get fit and be the best version of themselves. Well, whenever a couple people came in that had been doing CrossFit and they'd already done a couple competitions, they did some competitions, then everybody wanted to do them. I mean, we had at the Reindeer Games in December, I think we had 11 teams sign up.
wow,
9 of those 11 teams had never done a competition before.
that's awesome.
I mean, and I had literally nothing to do with it. Did not advertise it, didn't talk about it. I think I plugged it in our newsletter, and that was it.
Oh.
And
That's
sorry,
all
that's Murphy. But I mean, it's so cool to see that these average. Oh my gosh, it's so cool to see that these moms and dads and everybody that may or may not have ever done a sport before see CrossFit as a competitive outlet and something that they want to do. And that is just something really cool.
Yeah, it is.
I never wanted to push it because I didn't want to be the competition gym, But if people want to do it, I support them 100%, and
Right.
it really gets me jazzed up to see people want to go to that world.
We even have people coming in now, like they come in and they're like, "Oh, I saw this on TV. I want to compete. I want to do that stuff."
Yep.
Yeah, that's a ton of people that they're like, I saw the CrossFit Games, and that's when I talked about having that
On
conversation
ESPN,
before.
by the way.
Right.
Does that mean it's a real sport?
I
No?
would say so. I mean,
think
he was
so.
on ESPN 8 The Ocho, but
The Ocho. Yeah, and I think that goes back to our beginning. I really think that's what is setting CrossFit apart is not a fad and a staple in fitness and society is the ability to compete and creating a competitive nature behind fitness. Like even if you want to do it as fitness, not as sport, the competitions are designed that you can just go have fun for a weekend. There's nothing else that does that. Football does do that. Baseball does do that. Maybe softball, but for the most part, it's not. You're not practicing all the time. You're not creating that community.
I agree, and I heard him talk. I think it was on Barbell Shrugged a long time ago. The one thing, kind of along the lines of what you're saying, the one thing that CrossFit has that very, very few other sports have is the idea that we can be CrossFitters in our gym and we do DT, and then we see them do DT at the games, and we're like, I know what that feels like.
Exactly.
I've been there.
That's
I've
cool.
done that.
Yeah, that's a good.
I'm feeling the same thing that they feel. To me, the closest thing to that is, something like golf. That's a it's a weekend game, but still, even then, you can't do the things that person can do. You don't have the consistency. It's just, in a lot of the same can be said for the average CrossFitter versus the games CrossFitter. But I feel like there's something that really ties those two people really close together in CrossFit.
Yeah, I agree. So, moving into talked about competition and kind of like the style of person that does each. We were talking before we turned on the mics on the mindset of basically creating the sport athlete of CrossFit and weightlifting. And Ryan said they're completely opposite, and I think they're very, very similar. So, Ryan, let's hear what you think. So, of the weightlifting athlete to the CrossFit athlete and their mindset and the kind of person they are.
So, first, what they have the same is they both have to be enormous masochists. That's step number one. All right. Both people have to be willing to put themselves in uncomfortable positions, and that's why I think you see a lot of really great people are involved with CrossFit. I know I have plenty of people here that train here that are very influential and affluent people, that have done a lot of things in their life that have been uncomfortable but got them to good places, and that's why it's so easy for them to understand something like this. Right? I make myself hurt, I make myself uncomfortable, I'm going to get something good out of it. The more uncomfortable I am, the better the outcome's going to be. Right? That's what I think is similar, among other things, obviously. But the biggest difference is, like we talked about before we got on, is basically I categorize pretty much everybody on a spectrum of creative to organized, right? And this is not something I made up. I think this was like Tim Ferriss or somebody.
He
Creative
probably didn't make it up either.
Right, yeah, probably not. That's where I got it from, though,
Right.
so it's off me. So creative to organized, right? I know me, I'm more of a creative person. When it comes to following up on something and doing daily tasks, I'm absolutely horrible at it. I
true.
can't stand doing that. I put that off on everybody else.
Like good old business owner you are.
Right, yeah. But when it comes to building new things and fleshing things out of my mind onto paper and making something happen and getting it started, I feel like I do an excellent job at that, right? So that being said, that's more of that's more of a creative, more of an organizer, somebody that's more of a daily grind, can get things done every day. They get a lot of pleasure from doing the daily sort of monotonous tasks, that kind of thing, coming in, doing the same thing. They get pleasure from that. So to put that in context of what we're talking about, a CrossFitter is going to probably be one of those more creative people. They like to do a wide array of things, right? They like to do wall balls this day, and then they want to go do snatches the next day, and then they want to do, push press the next day, whatever. They don't like doing the same thing every day, which is a huge selling point being a gym owner is, for 3.5 years, we've never done the same workout twice, and we don't plan to anytime soon. I can't tell you how many times I've said that,
Other than the girl ones.
Meaning
I was going to say, I was like, what?
Meaning from minute 0 to minute 60.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
All right.
But whereas in weightlifting, you're going to do 3 things every day. You're going to do a rendition of those 3 things every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, you have to be a little bit more of an organized person. You have to take joy in doing the monotonous tasks over and over and over. Obviously, there's a lot of variability. That's strength and conditioning. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts, it's 3 things. Get good at 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Sure.
it. So let me hear your rebuttal.
Interesting. Okay. So I was looking at it a little bit different. I definitely agree that the high-level weightlifter and CrossFit athlete have some slight mental instability.
Yes, absolutely. Well, to be the highest level at a sport where you're just not naturally given the ability
Right.
to do it, you have to be.
Well, and
you have to take yourself to a weird place.
right. Well, and then unlike skill sports, because I don't think either of these are true skill sports as like hand-eye, like football, baseball,
Yeah.
basketball. There's some in those 3 sports that they don't have to work that hard and they can truly be
Right. Absolutely.
very, very good. These sports, because they're strength-based, some people are naturally very strong, obviously,
It's
but
more capacity gifts,
Yeah.
Right.
as
Skill
opposed
based.
to
Yeah.
skill gifts.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Bailey.
I think there would be a good amount of skills involved that take a lot of.
Agreed. There are some, but anybody you take somebody like Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was built to swing a baseball bat. That was what his body was built to do. He was extremely efficient at that. Steroids or not, right? He could swing.
Before steroids, he was
Right. His body was finely tuned to swing a baseball bat before he ever picked one up, right? You can't tell me, and maybe somebody can, that Rich Froning was built to do muscle ups better than anybody else.
Okay, yeah.
That's the point
Okay.
that we're at.
Yeah, there's like the true God-given talent to excel at a sport. I think yields itself very highly in like football, baseball, basketball,
Yeah.
those sports, and you can see that by some of them making it to very high levels with very poor work ethic. Not very often, but it's there.
It happens.
It's happened
frequently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now in CrossFit and weightlifting, I think that's impossible because you have
Yeah.
to put in the time.
It rewards the hardest workers
Right,
often.
exactly. Now, those hardest workers are probably the ones built to be the
True.
best, but at the same time, it is almost impossible to be there without it.
Absolutely.
Now, so I think that most of the high levels have a true addiction problem that they yield into their sport.
Fair.
And it's just a good outcome, right? You know, I don't think addiction has to be a bad thing
No.
as long as you control it well and it's a good outlet, right? Now they have to be able to put themselves through ungodly amounts of pain for very long periods of time.
Which arguably has great mental results.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Exactly.
Which I think is where the
Right.
addiction
The challenge,
part comes
yeah,
from.
exactly. The challenge of, overcoming difficult times.
Well,
being
and let's not
uncomfortable.
even, I mean, the just the endorphin release from working out.
Right. Yeah.
Enormous.
Yeah, exactly. So, now, in the sense of the creative to the organized, or the variability to consistency, I guess would be the comparison here. I believe CrossFit is like 4 movements.
Right.
So
Well,
I don't.
if you break it all the way down.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you broke yours all the way down because you can do 17 different snatch deadlift variations,
Right.
variations, squat variations, styles of snatching.
I agree.
Right?
Let me stop you. Here's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I broke mine down to 3 exercises. You broke yours down to 4 movement patterns.
Meh. Whatever.
Squat, still squat.
Yeah. So
Checkmate, CJ.
yeah, whatever. So until you get to the games, we pretty much practice. It's like 13 movements. I think it's more movements now with the dumbbell.
Yeah.
But it's basically a squat pattern, a pull pattern, a press pattern, and a gymnastics pull pattern.
Right.
So that's pretty much it. And then some sort of combination or permutation of those 4 movements. So I think they're very similar. I think mentally they're almost an identical athlete. The desire to win, desire to compete, the need for exuberant amounts of challenge.
The work ethic side, the competitive side, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all. That's where I'm at there.
I guess where I'm coming from is the attractiveness side,
Sure.
right? For somebody getting into it, it's the attractiveness of something like CrossFit versus weightlifting, right?
Yep.
I think certain people are going to be, I think those more creative people are going to be more attracted to CrossFit, where those more organized people are going to be more attracted to weightlifting. And I'm not talking about from the outside in. I'm talking about early stages of their development into said sports.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
Bailey, what do you think?
I don't think I'm a very organized person. I wouldn't say that.
Checkmate, Ryan.
I don't enjoy doing like the same tasks every single day. I did powerlifting before, and so the switch from powerlifting to weightlifting is it's a dynamic thing. Compared to a squat.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very powerful. Powerlifting's very, very absolutely strength based.
And then going to do a snatch or a clean.
Did this just turn into a West Side Barbell podcast?
Hey, it can be.
It's just there's a lot of variability, especially at the beginning, learning a snatch, clean and jerk. That just interests me a ton. It's just where just because I did one snatch perfect, the next time I'm gonna do it, probably not gonna do it perfect.
That's fair, and I'm going to disagree, because knowing you better than you know yourself. No.
Oh yeah.
But knowing you are somebody that you prioritize daily tasks heavily. You're somebody that I've never, ever, ever seen let something come before school, right?
Okay.
Which is a preconceived task that you've set out that's going to be every day or every other day, whatever. And once that preconceived task is set, you won't waver from it.
Okay.
So that's where I believe you are an organized person, right?
Okay.
That doesn't mean you clean your room every day. That's not what organized means.
Okay.
It means mentally your tasks are organized. Your priorities are organized.
Yeah, he's saying that because I prioritize school over editing the first podcast.
But in reality, I mean, you were supposed to miss. I asked you to miss class for something a couple weeks ago, and you struggled with it. You really didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right, and so
what?
It was for a weightlifting meet.
For a weightlifting meet, not one of ours, but for the high school.
School.
But it's that is what an organized is to me. They understand their priorities very heavily, and they don't want to change them.
Yeah.
I probably would have missed it. I would have skipped school.
I mean,
yeah.
I did.
Right, that's why you're a CrossFitter.
Or a doctor, whatever.
I did end up going to the meet, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely skipped a lot of school to train,
Oh man,
like in PT school,
Dude.
like a ridiculous amount.
yeah, forget school. School's
Whoa,
for fools.
I didn't say that. I don't think school's for everyone. So where does that leave us? Where are we at now?
To recap, I think there are a lot of similarities. There definitely are a lot of similarities. You're crazy to say that there's not. I think the biggest difference is the attractiveness, the execution. But when it comes to the competitive nature you couldn't find two sports that have to be more alike
Right.
in the mentality that's required
Mm-hmm.
to be an athlete at the highest level.
Right.
Yeah. I think the attraction to both CrossFit and weightlifting is what CJ was saying, where you can come in, you don't have to have these God-given talents. You can come in and you just work hard, you're going to get better at it. And I think that's what drew me to CrossFit so much, because I didn't have a lot of God-given talents. So it was just like, if I just work as hard as I can, be the best one day.
Okay, I think we're good.
So before we close this podcast, I want to hear the weightlifters say that CrossFit saved weightlifting.
Oh,
In
CrossFit
the
100%
United
saved
States.
weightlifting.
All right.
I
just
didn't
wanted
know
to
what
make that
weightlifting
clear.
was
I'm
before
pretty
CrossFit.
sure I said it earlier. I'm not afraid to
Yeah,
say that.
You said it last podcast. But yeah, so I definitely think that the two sports are intertwined immensely, especially in the States, or at least in like Western Hemisphere, maybe not quite in the Eastern Hemisphere, but it is very fun to implement a very similar ideology and teachings within each sport, and it's fun to teach both. I love it. So
Absolutely. Movement's cool.
movement is cool. I love moving. Everyone should move. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you, guys. This is podcast number 3 on the Weightlifting Way of Life, and we are signing off as an athlete, a coach, and a physical therapist, talking nonsense, weightlifting, CrossFit, hopefully more weightlifting from now on. I don't know. And thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.